This has World War III written all over it. And anyone who's out there who's paying attention to Jack Black pushing another Biden election, you need to wake up to the reality and in-your-face threats that the world is facing right now because of the United States' actions in the last 3 years.
What are your concerns, regarding the potential for Russia to be, destabilizing in that sense?
It is incredibly concerning. It would destabilize the Korean Peninsula, of course, and potentially, depending on the type of weapons they provide, might violate UN Security Council resolutions that Russia itself has supported, which is why we will continue to work with our allies in the region, South Korea, Japan, others, to respond to the threat posed by North Korea.
Believe it or not, the world respects Putin's Russia. The world does not respect Joe Biden's America at all, unless, of course, you're in the hegemonic and imperialistic regime that's caused more wars in 3 years than any other president has been able to start in 8. Peace is not even a thought anymore. It's all about pushing the agendas and forcing the planet into its uniworld system that America and those deep states have planned for it. Basically, it's not Americans, it's the United States government. Let's get that straight. Yesterday, Putin went to North Korea where he signed a pact with Kim Jong-un that if either of the countries were attacked, they would be there to aid one another. North Korea is definitely a fierce ally and would cause any country trouble in a war. In late 2022, the CFR estimated that North Korea had the world's 4th largest armed forces with 1.3 million active military personnel and 600,000 strong reserve force. In 2023, the Lowy Institute Asia Power Index ranked North Korea's military capability as 8th overall. And Vladimir Putin arrived in Vietnam a couple hours later in Hanoi, fresh from a rare meeting in North Korea with counterpart Kim Jong-un, in which the two autocrats agreed a new strategic partnership driven by Moscow's need for weapons in the war against Ukraine, or war with Ukraine, however you want to see it. Considered a pariah by the West, Putin is looking to boost economic ties with friendly countries and show the Western isolation is not having an impact on Russia. Of course it is, but you don't want to show that. As of January 2023, Vietnam had the 9th highest number of active military personnel in the world, with an estimated 470,000 troops and 2.5 million reserves. Vietnam also has over 53 million people who are considered available military manpower. That's a lot. Vietnam's military is considered one of the most successful and tenacious in the modern world, and it has a unique approach that includes a conscription policy for young adults for 2024. Vietnam is ranked 22 out of the 145 countries considered for the annual GFP review, military-wise. And Vietnam holds a power index score of 0.3158. A score of 0.000 is considered perfect. But this entry last reviewed was on January 8th of 2024. Now Cuba is ranked 68 out of 145 out of the annual considered for annual global power, the firepower review in the world. Why do I mention Cuba? If it's really a non-factor of military power, even though I think, 68 ain't bad. And the reason why I mention Cuba is because its location may be the most strategic country on Earth to be at war with the United States still. Why do I mention Cuba? During the Cold War, Cuba was an important client state for the Soviet Union. The deployment of Soviet nuclear missile sites on the island triggered the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, when Washington and Moscow came that close to nuclear war. For those who don't know, on June 13th of 2024, just last week, Russia sent a nuclear sub to Havana, Cuba. And an American fast attack submarine had sailed into Cuba the day after the Russian fleet, including one of the nation's most advanced nuclear subs, docked in Havana. According to the U.S. Navy, the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Carlos Fernandez de Casio, said Cuba had been advised of the visit, but evidently we do not like the presence of a nuclear-powered submarine from a country with policies hostile to Cuba, the United States. Canada then sent a ship over there and docked in Havana on Friday and was also due to leave on Monday. Now, during the Cold War, Cuba was an important client state for the Soviet Union. The deployment of Soviet nuclear missile sites on island triggered the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, as I had just mentioned, when Washington and Moscow were very, very close to war. Now, when I was a kid, we used to get coloring papers, with a game called Connect the Dots on it. When all the dots were connected, it would reveal a picture. It was simple. You didn't even have to be a scientist to figure it out. You could be not smart and still figure out how to connect the dots. But wait, there's only 3 dots that I've mentioned. North Korea, Vietnam, Cuba. Well, okay, let me add another one real quick just to put another dot in there. 5 days ago, Fox News just came out with a new bill that was passed to restart mandatory drafts again. Well, do you think that this is just a coincidence or just ironically timed during the most unstable moment in American history since the Cuban Missile Crisis? Still, that's only 4 dots, right? And it's only the young men. Okay, if you're going to make me do it, let's go ahead and add a 5th dot. 16 hours ago, Fox News just came out with another valuable piece of life-changing information. Here it is.
Women been required to register for the draft, but this could change with the Senate's version of the National Defense Authorization Act. There hasn't been a military draft since 1973, but it's mandatory for all American men to sign up when they turn 18. The bill in the Senate would require women to register for selective service. The argument for women being a part of the draft comes from experts who say it's, quote, necessary and fair to make the draft talent unified in the event of a national emergency. Reaction to the bill has been mixed.
They're talking about involuntarily drafting women. I'm totally opposed to that. I'm also worried about the expansion of the draft.
This is not about combat. It is about their opportunity to serve.
Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I'm adding that as another dot for sure. I mean, bills being passed that gets fighting-aged men to send their information to the government in case they need you. Yeah, that gets a dot. But let's talk about the need for a draft to begin with. The U.S. military is at an all-time low due to the Americans who feel like the military has been taken over by a woke culture of men acting like girls and women pretending they're men. Right now, the United States military is not an institution that gathers the respect it once did, and nobody really wants to fight for this government's agenda. Not many men want to join an army to have a transvestite barking orders at them. Let's be honest. It's not even funny, but it's more degrading. So could that be another dot? I think so. Dot 6. United States military is fragile, which makes it an opportune time for invasion, which lines up dot 7. Invasion and concentration on the border. Enough illegal aliens have entered this country to form a military of its own. Should it take sides with the opposition, which lines up dot 8. Timing. The timing of the Ukraine war and the Israel-Palestine war has the United States focus more on other countries' wars than their own security and its weapons, as it sold a lot of their weapons to Israel and Ukraine and are no longer available to defend the United States. So timing is everything. It's how wars are won. It's how wars are lost. And should we use Joe Biden as another dot? I mean, I think we should. A weak and frail leader who can't even get his people out of a third world country without casualties. I mean, not a good look. I'm not going to make this a leadership issue because I don't have to. Biden's done a good enough job at screwing up this world by himself without me having to remind anyone. And he does get the 9th dot. Because if you vote for Trump, who said he would end the Ukraine war in 24 hours, we wouldn't even have this concern. Which brings me to the last dot I'll give you, and it's the biggest dot and the most significant reason, at least in my eyes. It might not be in yours, but I'd never leave this piece out of any puzzle. The 10th dot is that the United States government is anti-God. Biden is godless. The Biden administration is godless. The transgender agenda, much of the far left trans LGBTQ and government figures, they've disavowed the word of God and have lost the protection that once was upon this land. Period. And if we don't connect these dots before too long, especially with that last one, this world will blame you and me for the stupidity and cowardice of those who lived and even many who ignorantly let World War III manifest right before their eyes. And during all these war pictures people are drawing up as a sign of things to come, we also see Russia establishing themselves as a country showing the rest of the world how to survive without the US dollar. Or the world banks that have the power to collapse nations by freezing accounts and sanctioning them. Within Putin's struggles, he's a hard person to bet against when you see him winning in a race where all the odds have been stacked against him. As the whole world is seeing this, he's exposing the imperialistic colonization and hegemonic and tactics that all the meanwhile giving the roadmap to the new multipolar world currency within the BRICS. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the BRICS. If you don't know what that is, it's the new world currency that is looking to replace the dollar as the world's leading currency. So if your dollar turns into a quarter within the next 20 years, you can tell your kids that you watched it happen right before your eyes, and some of you will say, I voted for it to happen. Sorry about that. But that's what happens when a world order doesn't play fair and nice. But these are just my thoughts and my theories on this. I want to know what yours are. Do you agree? Great. Do you disagree? Great. But as we come to reasonings and share our ideas together, we build trust. We build family and friendships with one another. So please, like, subscribe, get notified, and you click that bell or whatever. Up there, it's in the corner somewhere. But I'm so grateful to have each of you here with us. And once again, we will all be one love. I'll see you on the next one, and stay blessed. Bye-bye.